Tumbler Ridge Museum Foundation, $200,000, and it has that policy. I'll set up the discussion. We have sent a letter to the Museum Foundation, and we set out what we think that we wanted to see happen before we would look into funding. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Wall, but those things haven't been met as of yet. I know they're in the process. With discussing with some of the museum people that they're working on it. There's kind of a hold up on some of it because of not something they're in charge of, but they can handle it. So you got the other group that's holding things up, from what I've been told. So I would like to. I don't think we can pay this. In my mind, kind of pay until the better, what's asked for down better has been met. But I would like to see us put an amount away and just see if we can get past this. We get a MOU signed between the two groups and solve it that way. I hate to see something pulled down or something, because I know we've given lots of time for this, but it just doesn't seem to work so far. So I'd like to give it a little more time. That's my feeling on it. Anything? Anybody else? Councillor Howe?
Yeah, so I'm a little miffed with how this works. Like I understand here it says the policy is met, but we did have a letter that we sent to them, but we didn't get the information back, right? Like that's, yeah. We haven't got all I's dotted and T's crossed at this point, and it is a big spend. It's the #1 spend on this grant aid application. And the other problem I have is that you know, we had a meeting here where we had a roundtable discussion where all of them were allowed to come down and kind of explain to us how this works, and to me, that's not the meeting didn't progress the way that I thought it would. I thought that was their opportunity to come down and explain it to those of us that aren't there all the time and don't understand the ins and outs of it, and explain where the money goes and this and that. And to me, we had Charles Helm come down and explain a few things about how he's utilizing the museum to bring doctors into town, and that really wasn't what I was looking for. To me, that was the opportunity for the museum board to come sit down and have a roundtable discussion and explain to us why they need the $200,000 again. And to me, until we get that done, I don't fully understand it. I'm not willing to spend the $200,000, so I'm voting against it.
Yeah.
So we're waiting currently for the MOU between the museum and Geopark. Is that the only thing that's
the main thing? Yeah.
Okay, so we can hold back some for leverage with the museum, and there might be a holdback for the Geopark, because that's two parties that need to come together to collaborate to build the MOU.
The way I understand it, Mr. Wilkin, straighten me out if I'm wrong again, but the Geopark's a contract. This is a fee for service. And it's contract's already done. We don't fund them as a grant. We give them a grant. So it's a service. Am I right there, Mr. Waller, or wrong?
That's correct. We have entered into a contract for a service contract where the Geopark is providing a paid service for which we pay them for. Again, this is not a grant. That's the difference between, like, the Youth Society, again, the museum, we are paying them to do what it is that they normally do. The Geopark, we are paying them to manage the visitor center for us. It is a service contract. It's not a fee for service. It's not a grant and aid. Right now, the Geopark, I don't believe we fund them at all through grant service.
I'm just saying that, like, if we do a holdback on the museum's part for the MOU, they also have to have a willing party to work with them.
I know that, and that was in the discussion I've had actually was today, and I think it would be best to pressure on both sides to get this done, and so I plan on doing that.
Okay.
I'm just not sure, Mr. Wallace, what I suggested there, that, say, this could be put aside, is there a way we can do that? And relook at this after the, I don't know if we want to put a time limit on it or not, but hopefully after we get this all signed up and
Yeah,
we're
just
happy.
allocate whatever money you want into, you can allocate it specifically for the museum, you can allocate it for future council decisions, whatever you feel is appropriate.
I think Councilor Bear.
Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. In the letter, when we talk about the MOU, at the last museum meeting that I attended, there was discussion about having, like, looking at the MOU in relationship of the museum doing an MOU with Philip J. Curry Museum. I think that works good for two museums, but I think when we look at the way the museum is running here in Tumbler with the Geopark and even Wolverine Nordic Mountain Society, I think we're, you know, it might not address the overlapping in marketing and education and some of those tourism attractions that we're looking for. And I think, you know, I think when the two groups start working together and then come up with a plan that's really going to work moving forward in kind of the direction, and in the last 4 years, the direction has been in tourism and marketing ourselves. But I think they need to find a way that, you know, we're not all, it's overlapping funds is what we're really looking at. And so when the Museum Foundation actually, you know, got the designation and moved forward with, you know, we have a geopark now, we haven't figured out how we're going to sustain all this new group, the two groups together, and I think that's the main thing. And then where council comes into that point, you know, where we fit into, you know, figuring out how this is all going to move forward, and I think that's the big issue. And I mean, there's no doubt that the district supports both of these organizations. We have been for a long time, but I think the model that they're moving forward in, like we're seeing growth in one area, and the museum is great on the scientific side, and that's where we don't play a part in that. So we got to figure out where the money goes, you know, a little bit more, and that means maybe sitting all of the groups down at the table again and figuring out that path also. So it's just like, you know, hopefully that MOU answers some of our questions too.
Yeah, I think the MOU is really helpful, and there's more than just two groups, but these two groups for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And they, you know, this is what you do, this is what we do, so that there isn't this conflict all the time. And, I think it's going to be great, and that once we get it, that's how you have to.
Yeah, again, like it's $200,000, and it is, as I understand it, is a huge portion of their budget. To me, I don't understand why this would not be in on time to get started with, why the letter would not be responded to, and why they would not take the opportunity to come sit down at a roundtable discussion and explain it all to us. Things have changed since last year. They are now, the way I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, but they are now able to charge for their services because there's some new protection act in British Columbia. They're choosing not to do this, and to me, that's an opportunity for them to make money that they're choosing not to do. That's the type of discussions I wanted to have around that round table. The folks weren't there to have that discussion, and until we can have those types of discussions to understand what has changed and where the opportunities have. The whole point of this thing was to create something that further down the road would be self-sustaining and would get off of support of the district of Tumbler Ridge, and you know, to at some point be the repository for the provincial government in British Columbia. Well, the provincial government hasn't got on it. We continue to fund it. Maybe it's time to put it back on the provincial government and say, sorry, we can't fund it anymore. They've changed legislation to make it easier for these guys to make more money at it. And to me, I have no problem supporting the research. I think the district of Tumbler Ridge should have some money for research when they find a dinosaur skull down by Flatbed Creek and have the paleontologist validate it or whatever. But to continue to give this money away without having, it seems like to me, have them come in and get really engaged and explain to us where it's going, to me, I'm done with it. Just to be blatantly honest with it, that's as far as I'm willing to go with the museum. I said after 4 years in here, if we had to figure something out, we needed to make a change, and I'm sticking by my word. So that's where I am.
Yeah, I'm just going to put a motion on the table that we put 200,000 in a fund that the Tumbler that council can use for seconder for that? Councilor McCart? Any more discussion on it?
Yeah, I'd like to chime in there, Don.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'm not sure what your motion is. I'm just wondering if you're putting $200,000 to the side, and if they meet the letter criteria, then we talk about it?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, I actually echo Councillor Howe's comments there. I was going to try chiming in earlier, but it's a little tough. I believe we wrote this letter in July, and it came from, obviously, direction of council. The letter came from the mayor's office. And to me, they haven't answered it. They had an opportunity to come in and discuss with council, like Councillor Howe said, in the round table, and all we heard about was about conferences coming to Tumbler Ridge. You know, I think, you know, just because they're going to do an MOU doesn't justify giving them the $200,000. I think they have to answer the whole letter. And there was lots of stuff in there in regards to education and camps and all that. Is that what we're talking about? The whole letter or just the one item?
The whole letter.
Okay, thank you.
But I think most of that can be covered with an MOU. Somebody else have their hand up there? Okay, I'll call the question on it. All in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Were you opposed?
I'm opposed.
Okay, so it's 3-3, so it's defeated. Okay, does anybody have anything else they want to put on here?
You know, when I voted in favor of that, so is it just asking council, is it the wording of how the $200,000 is getting put aside? Just, you know, just maybe you can clarify, maybe a different recommendation, would it be just to, just deny this altogether without any money put aside? Is that what council's looking at?
So I'll weigh in.
Yeah,
I'll weigh in. Yeah,
just
no,
kind of-
to me, they've had the opportunity to come in. We've made it, you know, lots of opportunities. We dedicated a whole night for them to come in and explain to us how this worked. We've spent ample amount of time on our end on it. We spend so much time on this museum, and I was looking for them all to come in and have a roundtable discussion, and that's what we presented to them, that's what we wanted, and we didn't have that. We had Charles Helm come in. To me, it didn't feel like there was a frank and open conversation. We didn't have all the right players at the table. We didn't have all the answers. And again, the application is late, and to me it just shows that at that point there, and you're not willing to answer the letter, they just assume they're going to get the money again. So I'm not willing to support it anymore. After 4 years of continuing to support this at $200,000 a year, I just don't feel that it's in the best nature of our community to continue to support it this way. Maybe there's a way forward with the museum and a different funding formula, but the way this is going now, it needs to stop until we can all get together and figure out the right way to do it.
Thank you. In the motion, in your motion that I voted in favor of, that doesn't, in that motion, that doesn't mean that they can meet the requirements or they can get the MOU. That doesn't state that we have to give the 200,000.
No.
No? Does it?
I just used that because that was the figure that was on there.
Okay.
I just know how important the museum is to this town and to the geopark, and I'm not ready to give up on it. You know, I just we've got well over $2 million invested here, and for us to all of a sudden sit here tonight and say, well, we're not ready to push. I know we're pushing the limits when we set out timelines and then not met, and we send letters out. Just ask ourselves. I don't think we asked for too much, anything as if we did. I just, again, I have a hard time giving up on it. I know the importance. I know what they've brought to this town, and I hear it when I'm out of town. You know, the museum is a big part of this town, and I really want to see it succeed. Councilor Kirby.
Thank you, Worship. I agree with Councillor Howe that they've had ample time to respond. And maybe, you know, I get that. I do see the improvements to the museum. I see the importance of the PRC to the region. That you know, that's a regional issue, but I think we do have to address the concerns we have as a community. And, you know, maybe the recommendation should be, you know, we can put a money value on it after, but maybe it is to defeat this motion, which has been, and until we sit down and can figure out a path forward, including all the groups, that money value isn't determined.
The other reason I put the 200,000 thing down there is that I think once we're past budget time, it's hard to come back or can we just come back and add something anytime we want?
You can, you're not supposed to. The idea of the municipality passing the budget at the beginning of the year is that this is the opportunity for citizens to be involved, and then if you make changes throughout, at the end of the year you make a budget amendment. So there's no rules against you adding money into budget mid-year. I think that council's done it a number of times and there's good reasons for it. But the idea of passing the budget at the beginning of the year and requiring an amendment that goes to the province at the end of the year is that the citizens are supposed to be engaged during the budget time, and budgeting shouldn't take place throughout the year where things are getting added in. So setting aside the $200,000 now, I think is probably the best way to go, but you can not do that and then add it in later. There's nothing preventing you.
I put a recommendation on the floor that we deny the Tumbler Ridge Museum's Foundation's request of $200,000.
Haven't we already done that?
Well,
No, we
We
denied,
defeated
we
the other one.
voted out
Defeated
the
the
one
other
I
one.
put up. Okay. Seconder? More discussion on it? Councilor McCarthy.
Deny until when? Is that we're done? Is that what we're talking about, or is that, because I'm not there yet.
It's worded, we're done. At that, we are done.
Okay, then I just got a couple of words to say. I mean, I think there's no doubt, the past few years, more than just 4, there's been a lot of frustration with this group. I mean, let's be honest about it. The way councillors are treated at the meetings, and then the attitude towards town hall. I mean, maybe the public doesn't know about it, but we definitely do, and quite frankly, tired of it. Because we've bent over backwards, and it seems like we've always gave the $50,000 increments, not even according to our own bylaws, or our own procedure, whereas quarterly. We always seem to bend over backwards in health, but still get slammed. But at the same time, I think this should be taken as a wake-up call, and not a slam the door shut. And I think that's a mistake, because not only will we do that, but everybody else will follow suit. The regional district will follow any support that they have within this area. Will I think it'll follow suit, and I think it'll be a death blow to the museum. And I don't think that's where we should be.
I agree with you. Councilor Scott.
Will we relook at this once we receive the MOU? And then the only thing I was like, I think the museum understands the importance of the MOU, but they've got to work with another partner in providing that. So, you know, they've already received everything they're going to have. And then if we think the museum is such an intricate part of Tumbler Ridge, I don't understand why they aren't in a contract position like the Geopark is, and why they're at this fee for service.
No, truth, we've tried, many councils trying to do that, but it has never been, it's always been voted up. It's never been enough people that want to have that city contract. The museum's always wanted it because it allows them to plan better. But no, we haven't, we've never been in that position to do that.
thank you, Worship.
Sorry, Don, I didn't hear Councilor Curry. What was the motion?
To deny the Museum Foundation their grant and aid at this point.
At this point, but didn't we just do that?
Well,
No, we voted down my motion, which was to put 200,000 aside and then wait for that.
so this is where I need, help from council to determine where we're going with this. So we don't want to, we defeated the motion to wait till they had their information in at the 200,000 mark, which, didn't have to be the 200,000 mark. Now I put a motion on the floor because that's what it seemed like, that we weren't ready to move forward. So where is the happy medium here? Because, we can defeat the motion I just put on the floor again, but, let's talk about what the next motion, recommendation could be, because we could be here all day.
I'm with
Yeah, we could be, is
Okay.
it okay to go ahead, Don?
Yeah, go ahead, Darryl.
Sorry, like I said, hard again. My thing is I don't, like, I didn't agree with putting money to the side. I think the museum should come in. I mean, they had an opportunity. I'm willing to give them another chance. I know Councillor McKay just mentioned how we've bent over backwards, and we have. I mean, I know I have in the 3 years and a bit that I've been on council, but also sat in the gallery and listened to previous councils, and they actually tried to cut back the museum, and then they were having tough times, and they brought it back to the full amount. I think they, maybe this is a wake-up call. They realized that that letter meant something that came from Don. And I know the Peace Regional District wrote a letter of support as well to that same letter. So maybe it's an opportunity that they realize that maybe they should come into the next PNP and sit down and answer the questions and give us the information we need. And then, I know Mr. Wall just said it, we can add it to the budget then. There's nothing against that. I'm not prepared to put money to the side in case they don't meet that criteria. And that's gone on for years, that they were supposed to do this and supposed to do that. They never do.
Okay, anybody else? Councillor Kane.
I mean, did Councillor Scott not just give us a solution? I mean, why don't we put them? Why is it not a contractual obligation where it's written out, and if you don't follow the contract, well, I mean that they can write their own fate on that.
Something we can do, I don't think something we can, well, I guess we can make a motion to do that.
That would be, I mean, that's council, you had your fee-for-service contract with the museum last time. You had a number of deliverables in there. Were you happy with the result?
Somebody else?
The legalities of a contract, does that make it more ironclad than just a fee-for-service? Or it can be?
Fee-for-service contract, as far as meeting the deliverables, if they don't meet the deliverables, you don't have to give them the money. That was if council recalls, that's the discussion you guys had the last time. If I recall correctly, council wasn't happy with the deliverables, but still decided to give them the money. My guess would be you're in the same position, maybe not, I don't know. I mean, you can certainly structure a contract differently. Instead of waiting till the end of a 3-year contract to evaluate it, you can have milestones within. Meet here and we'll give you the next phase. Meet here, we'll give you the next phase. The last fee-for-service contract was, here's everything you have to do. We're going to keep giving you all the money, and then at the end of it, we'll evaluate your deliverables. You can certainly structure your contract so that there's timelines and milestones to hit before then, so you're not left with that situation where you're at the end of it, you've already given out all the money and you don't have any recourse.
Okay, last one.
Thank you, Worship. I think the deliverables got us into some issues that we just couldn't get back from. That's where the working relationship got hard, because the museum has a different mind frame on what their product is coming out, and us as a district shouldn't be telling their board how they should run their board either. But the fact is we have an obligation to the taxpayers and how their money's being spent. So I think it's time to come to the table, because I've talked with a few. Well, I'm at their board meetings, and the TRMF still thinks that the model that they follow is the model to follow. Education, marketing, etc. I think it is time to have some changes, for sure, for us to get behind that. If we can just say, absolutely, $200,000 goes towards science and wages, or whatever that might be, and just keep our hands out of it, then that's an easy thing. That's $200,000, agreed. But this is where we're at, is the role they play in the community, what the tax dollars are going to. And, it's time that we actually started working those things out, getting all the groups together. So, that's where we're at.
Okay.
One last, is it, do you think it's, we could put a motion to table this discussion until we do have a meeting, and then make a decision based on a follow-up meeting, which has to take place pretty quickly, I imagine.
Time's up.
We're in budget right now, so.
Yeah.
Mr. Wall, I don't think there's time.
Time's the issue.
Adding it into the budget, no. adding it into the work plan. Now, council has to recall that the budget doesn't actually get passed until April because we have to wait for BC assessment to come out with the final rules. So there's time for you to make those changes. You'd have to waive your budgeting policy because council set a budgeting policy that you're going to be done by a certain time this year. So that would have to be done. So you can do what it is you're suggesting, Councillor McKay. You just need a waiver of policy.
And if there's not if there's not a mood for that in council, then it's a waste of a motion, but I guess we won't find. So could I put a motion on the floor?
Oh, there is a motion.
Oh, there is, sorry.
So on the motion of not hearing the grant and aid, all in favor? Opposed? Darryl, where were you?
I'm sorry, I don't know what motion you're on, Don.
The motion is the one that Councillor Kirby made to not support the $200,000 grant and aid.
Okay, but I thought we voted on it. Okay, I'm in favor of not supporting it.
Okay, so that's 4-2. Yeah, so it's carried. Can I just ask council to okay a letter be sent to the museum saying that we really want to sit down and talk to the museum said it. So that what is their plans? And PMP.
Don, if I can just chime in, I know what Councillor McKay said, I actually heard most of his. I support that.
So we'll send a letter and invite them, and we want their executive here, so that we can talk about where the museum's going, not about forums and stuff.
Yeah, and along with that, if that's what the will of council is to invite them back for another meeting, then, you know, and we all say this is their final chance or whatever, all the players need to be at the table. And we have some players that we should also bring to the table. I can't remember the guy's name, but I think we should have a discussion as council I can't remember that guy's name, but he had so much wealth of information of the way it worked within the government, of how they could get funding and the government rules on paleontology and protecting fossils. I can't remember the guy's name, but
Bruce White.
he would be a wealth of information to have sit at that table with us, and I really think he should be there for it. He would help get, clarify stuff that we are unaware of or unsure of, and give us some clarity from the government's backing as well. So at some point, that's the goal, is to get it so that, the government takes it over. I mean, what better government to do it than the NDP, right? So.
I'm not sure Bruce White would be the person to have at the PMP.
Bruce, is that his name?
But I think he's the guy that should be involved down the road. This discussion that I had today is should be on that panel.
But he did understand how the new rules around paleontology and the opportunity for them to now charge for their services. I mean, that's the discussion and debate that I want to have, and understand why they can't go out and charge the mine or charge the oil company, or they fly all over the world doing this stuff for free when they could be getting money for it and getting off of the public's money. And to me, that's the discussion that I want to have.
Yeah.
And I understand they may have some ethical debates on it, but I don't. We didn't hear that from them. We heard that from Dr. Helm, and that's the debate I want to have, the discussion. So.
That question's been raised before, but still, a very good answer.
But he is the guy that has the knowledge on it. This Bruce, is that his name?
Yeah, Bruce White.
So that's why I think he should be invited to the meeting. If we're going to have this letter and send a letter out to them, I'd like to have a guy like that, or that guy attend it if he's allowed. Maybe I'm missing something why he's not allowed to attend a council meeting. But
I think for funding around this. In my view, anyway. Okay. You got everything that you needed on that, Mr. Wong?
You were asking council for a motion to send a letter, and that hasn't been resolved.
Well, I've got the motion for that letter. All in favor? Opposed? You okay with the letter, Darryl?
Yeah, absolutely, Your Worship.
Carried. Okay. Tax rates.